Hari Om. Thank you very much, Swami Brahmadhyananandaji. Now, there will be talk by Swami Kunath Manandaji. A little bit of introduction about Swami Kunath Manandaji. Kunath Manandaji belongs to the state of Karnataka in India, and he resides mostly in the USA. As you know, we are in Temple of Peace, Denver, Colorado ashram. Since the inception of the ashram in Denver, Swami Kunath Manandaji has been rendering his services there. Swami Kunath Manandaji took residential brahmachari training course in 2004-2005 during that time. And if you all remember, you all have seen Sri Guru Mandir. There was a brahmachari training course that was going on during that time. So he had his training during that time, and he did his service during the construction of Sri Guru Mandir. With this little bit of introduction, I give it over to Swami Kunath.
All of you. This small talk is coming to you from the Miami ashram, even though I'm associated with the Temple of Peace. I'm currently based in the Miami ashram. Our talk for this morning is titled Attitude Towards One's Guru and Sadhana. Before we
Swamiji, if you could please increase your volume, please, audio. Thank you.
I have maxed out. Can you hear me? Is it better?
No, it's about the same.
Is it any better, Baba?
I'm sorry, Baba. It's still the same.
Audio quality is not good. They're saying volume was too much.
Maybe Deepak Baba, is the audio fine for you? Yeah, Swamiji, sorry, please go ahead.
Pranam Swamiji, can you please speak a little bit?
Can you hear me?
The voice is little low, Baba.
Okay, we will, in a quick second, we will try another mic and see if that will work. Can you hear me any better, Baba?
I think it's okay, Baba. Please continue,
Yes.
because there are mixed responses. Some say it is fine, some say not so okay, but we'll go ahead.
We will proceed, Baba.
We'll
Pranam.
proceed.
Okay. So let us begin with a small prayer. Om Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. My humble prostrations to this entire lineage of Kriya Yoga masters, especially our loving Gurudev and our loving Guruji. I humbly bow down to the saints and sages of all spiritual paths, and my humble prostrations to the divinity present in each one of you. The talk this morning is about the attitude towards one's Guru and towards sadhana. Paul, let us talk about who is a Guru. What is a Guru? Guru is one who removes the darkness of ignorance. And when we talk about ignorance, we are not talking about technical or book knowledge. Ignorance refers to ignorance of God or ignorance of the self. And Guru is one who has been able to remove the darkness of self-ignorance or ignorance of God from our hearts and enable us to self-knowledge. Guru is the one who has opened our inner eyes, and in the presence of the Guru, all darkness disappears. And if darkness does not, then that person is not a Guru, he's a teacher. We have many teachers in our lives. Right from the time of we were babies, starting with the mother, father, then in school, many teachers, etc. So in our lives, we encounter many teachers. There is a different approach where with the Guru, literally every individual animate or inanimate thing that we encounter in life can become a Guru. It is a different state that we have to get to in order for that to happen. When we look at this guru-disciple relationship, many a times it so happens that the disciple comes to the guru, but instead of the guru teaching the disciple begins to teach the guru. And this happened in the Bhagavad Gita also. Arjuna and Lord Krishna. Initially, Arjuna says, I know what is right, I know what is wrong. I'm telling you that this is not right. What you're asking me to do is not right. I just want to stop this whole game. That is the initial conversation with Lord Krishna. But then, as the nervousness of the situation sets into with Arjuna, in the second chapter, he says, Shishyasteham, Shadi Mam Tvam Prapannam. Meaning, I'm your disciple. Not you are my guru, but I'm your disciple. So when we look at the guru, when or why does the guru enable you to attain self-knowledge? And that happens, the disciple has the right attitude towards the guru and towards the teachings, more importantly, of the guru. And when we talk about this word attitude, what does attitude mean? Attitude is broadly defined as a way of thinking or feeling about someone or something, typically one that is reflected in a person's behavior. So it's mental state. So what kind of attitude should one have towards the guru? Let us look at this scene from the Mahabharata. The war is yet to begin, and the war again, the fratricidal war between the Pandavas and Kauravas. Both of them are cousins, essentially. All the negotiations for a truce and amicable settlement between the Pandavas and Kauravas have failed, including an attempt by Lord Krishna himself talking about peace. And when this is happening, there are negotiations and kings are deciding which side they want to be fighting on. And at the same time, Lord Krishna has declared that he will not fight, nor that he will carry a weapon, but has offered that his army will be on one side and he himself will be on the opposite side. And the two key players in this drama of life, which is Krishna and Arjuna, both of them approach Sri Krishna. And this is a beautiful scene where Lord Krishna is sleeping on the bed. There's only a single chair near the head. And Duryodhana comes in, hurriedly approaches, seeing the chair, immediately seats himself at the head of Sri Krishna. Arjuna comes in, he also looks at this scene. He already sees Duryodhana sitting there. And Arjuna sits lovingly at the feet of Lord Krishna and begins gently massaging his feet, asking softly, does Sri Krishna also sleep? So Lord Krishna wakes up, first sees Arjuna, because when you wake up, you see something in front of you, and begins naturally talking to him. And at that point, Duryodhana interrupts and arrogantly addresses Lord Krishna and says, I came here first, you should be talking to me, not Arjuna. And Lord Krishna says, I did not see you, you're sitting right here in my head, I did not see you. So eventually the story goes on, and Duryodhana gets to keep the army of Lord Krishna, and Arjuna beautifully gets the company of Lord Krishna as his charioteer. He asks Lord Krishna to be his charioteer. And remember, at this point, Arjuna is not seeing Lord Krishna as his guru or anything like that. He's just a friend, his brother-in-law, and a guide, a philosopher. And he says, be my charioteer. And so when we look at this whole scene, look at the approach and attitude of each of these individuals. On one hand, we have Duryodhana, who is arrogant, and Arjuna is humble in his approach, sitting at the feet, massaging his feet. And particular aspect, this attitude of humility is a very, very important quality a devotee ought to have. And this has been stressed by our loving Guruji also. And because it is such a vital quality and a virtue that we have to develop and have towards the Guru, towards the teachings of the masters, Guruji has gone on to even write a beautiful book. Some of you may have read this book, Humility, the Stepping Stone to Spirituality. Humility is first, and then comes all the rest of the attributes or qualities. Why? Because through humility comes surrender. So, what is humility? In this beautiful book, Guruji writes, humility comes from the Latin word humilis, which means low. And it is usually used to describe the absence of ego. A humble person is not conceited or boastful. In Sanskrit, the word for humility is vinamra or vinita, which again Guruji explains comes from the word nam, meaning to bend, to bow down, to submit. When speaking of modesty, bending, bowing down, submissiveness, it does not necessarily mean or refer to someone who is devoid of self-esteem. Largely in the Western thought, humility and simplicity are not always understood as positive qualities. To the extent that some Western thinkers consider humility as an indication of lack of self-esteem and lack of self-confidence. Spirituality does not unravel self-esteem. It makes it more brilliant and more efficient for practical living. Our loving Gurudev, Paramahamsa Hariharanji, would always close his letters that he would write with the words, humble Hariharananda. Very difficult. Coming back to humility, humility is a virtue that makes us truly beautiful and helpful to others. Humility has strength and is unknown to most. Humility has flexibility and accommodative quality and the power of adjustment, all of which are needed in daily life. Conversely, ego and arrogance, as exhibited by Duryodhana throughout whole of Mahabharata, are qualities of a stubborn and fragile nature. Humility builds life and relationships. Ego and stubbornness destroys everything. When in life, we acquire many things materially, and that could be in the form of wealth, possessions, house, cars, people, a string of degrees, etc. These do not make us important. Humility in our hearts and our actions make us worthy instruments in the hand of the Lord. Those who are truly humble have strength and ability than people holding on to power and prestige. In fact, renunciation of power is the real power in life. This is very contrary to those who are filled with ego and arrogance. And with humility is also combined simplicity of how we portray ourselves, how we live. The theme of spiritual life in general, as well as this beautiful exalted path of Kriya, is surrender to God. This word surrender has been emphasized much more than the word yoga itself in the Yoga Sutras of sage Patanjali. Can a person with ego, stubbornness, and arrogance surrender? The simple answer is no. Then who can surrender? One who is humble and grows daily in love can surrender. When talking about surrender, Guruji has frequently mentioned, be humbler than a blade of grass. When you look at the scenario, there is grass on the banks of a river. When the river floods, what happens to the grass? The grass just bends over and the water continues to flow. And when the flood recedes, the grass again is back standing. On the contrary, the tall trees right on the banks of the river, when it floods, because the soil has become loose, the tree is tall, heavy, has a tendency to fall. These two signify two aspects. The grass is humble, and the tree, on the other hand, demonstrates stubbornness and ego. So the mightier we are, the greater we fall. Along the lines of humility, Jesus told his disciples, the greatest among you will be your servant. It's a quote from Matthew's 23:11. Indeed, the one who is the best will be the servant. This same attitude of a servant in the path of devotion, the practice of being a servant of the Lord is known as Dasya Bhakti. So if I am to serve, I must be humble. Humility and service are two leaves from the same plant. When you look at a mother and a child, especially a baby child, a mother bends down to pick up the child. Why? Because the child cannot stand on its own. So one who serves bends. Simply put, one who serves is humble. Gurudev would often say, God is the best servant. How is God a servant? Who is breathing in you and me? It is God. God is continuously breathing within us. We sleep, but God does not sleep. When we sleep, the breath goes on. So God is the best servant. We looked at humility very briefly, which is a key attribute and an attitude that we ought to have towards the Guru, towards the teachings which we apply. When we apply those teachings, it becomes sadhana. Humility is the key foundation on which everything else is built on. All the rest of the attributes that we ought are built on humility. Next comes loyalty. Loyalty towards the Guru, towards the path also. The great master Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa would narrate a story, an incident or a story where a farmer is attempting to dig a well to get water. He digs one hole for about 5 feet, no water. Goes to another place, digs another hole, 5 feet, no water. And he continues to keep doing this across his land over 10 times or so. A passerby stops and asks, what are you doing? After listening to the farmer, he says, why don't you just dig in one place? So if he has been digging 5 feet and he's dug 10 times, that means 50 feet. Dig in one place. And the farmer does, and so he strikes water. This story indicates or has a parallel in the spiritual path, where we go test out a spiritual teacher or a master or a path, all combined sometimes. Then we say, this is not for me. Go try something else. Today, we try one path of meditation, another path of meditation, another teacher, this teacher, that teacher. So it is okay to test initially to see if it is applicable to you or not, but then one has to quickly settle down and choose one path and take it all the way to the end. And choosing that one path, go to the end. And sometimes it doesn't end. And what happens is, as a result, our whole life is wasted, and we have been shopping, spiritual window shopping all the time throughout life, and we get nowhere. There's no spiritual progress because we have not a teacher and not a realized master. Realized masters don't take advantage of disciples or abuse that relationship of a guru-disciple relationship. So the devote has strong, unshakable faith and are also honest about their human limitations. When we talk about faith, we are talking about faith in the words, the teachings, which essentially is part of the sadhana, teachings of the Guru. And these teachings are derived from the scriptures and their direct experience. The opposite of faith is doubt or disbelief. Why does this happen? Because we are dealing with the mind. A faculty that is known as the doubting mind. The mind is known as the doubting mind. Samshayatmika manaha. Samshaya means doubt. Many times when we are on the spiritual path, this doubt causes us to either down on the spiritual path, or many a times it just completely derails us from the path. This doubt is what causes us not to be loyal. This doubt is what causes us to go and do spiritual window shopping endlessly. Is this path for me? I've been practicing for many years. Nothing is happening. Why is it not happening? Is the problem in the teachings of the Guru, or is it within oneself? Is one capable of even examining oneself in an unbiased way to see where the problem is? When we talk about this implicit faith, the story of Shabari, a small girl, and we are going back to the Ramayana, an epic, which is the life of Lord Rama. And Lord Rama, again, is Lord Vishnu incarnate, came down to earth to teach. And a young girl came to sage Matanga and continued to live there. And when time came, he had to depart, leave his body. She just continued to live there serving the sun. She imbibed the teachings, and when time came for him to leave, he said she wanted to go also. And he says, no, you stay here. And because the sage knew that Lord Rama, Lord Vishnu incarnate as Lord Rama, would come to that hermitage and grant her salvation. And she just dutifully followed. And that small girl became an old, bent lady. But she just followed, saying, my Guru has told that I should just be here. And eventually, Lord Rama comes there and does grant her salvation. Faith can move mountains. Next comes sincerity. When we come to sincerity, before we talk about sincerity to the Guru and teachings of the Guru and to the sadhana itself, our practice, first, one needs to be sincere to oneself. The mind is a beautiful instrument to us by God. Yet, it is a tricky mind. This mind has been there with us for millions of lives and has become and is acting as a master. And this mind has a tendency to mislead us by extolling our own mistakes and behavior. It causes us to be deceptive, hypocritical, cunning, and tricky in approach. Even when approaching the Guru or applying the teachings, we apply all these deceptive ways. We have to tear our inner being to bits through self-analysis and make sure that we are really honest, sincere to ourselves first. And next comes sincerity to the Guru and to the teachings. Then we come to devotion. Devotion is based on trust. And with this trust, I'm going to trust somebody. I'm going to listen to somebody rather than try to be in charge and in control all the time. Why? Because I need to listen to somebody because I need help. I am not able to see clearly. I am not able to intelligently think. Even my logic fails at a certain point in time. Sometimes my mind is not even logical. But in order to come to this state of trusting the Guru, trusting the teachings of the Guru, it is a process. It is a process that we come to gradually through testing our own selves, finding the right teacher, finding the right Guru. But once you do, and you make a decision, I am going to listen. Even if what he or she says and goes completely against my will. Why? Because I have implicit faith. Individual, embodied individual is a realized master. That master, this master has attained the ultimate union with the divine. The experience of being able to see God in all. And by listening, by following the teachings, listening to the teachings of this Guru, I'm going to get to that point. I'm going to listen because I know my usual patterns of my mind are addictive, are clinging to emotions and negative situations, etc. So I'm going to trust this external person to be my guide. My Guru is guiding me and I have to be totally open to saying yes rather than saying endlessly arguing, negotiating, and then going against his advice. In the West particularly, it's very difficult. This is very difficult to accept. Why should I listen to someone? Why should I follow somebody? And yes, this is a question, it becomes complicated in the light of some abusive situations. But that is what is avoided by seeking out a real Guru, a Guru who is realized. This word Guru itself has been partially up in the Western lexicon because Guru has been applied to anything and everybody. There is computer Guru, there is investment Guru. So, but spiritual Guru is a realized master. So that is the difference. And a true Guru helps us open the channel to our own wisdom and discover that the Guru is within. Not only that, this Guru helps us get to the point where we are able to experience that this entire world is nothing but God. And this is reflected by the statement, a beautiful statement by Gurudev, where Gurudev says, there is no non-God in this world. To experience that, why we need this external help in the form of a Guru to take us to that point. So that devotion to the Guru is an important attitude that you inculcate, develop, and it comes with time because it is based on trust. Trust is truth over time. as you stay close to the Guru, listening, following, observing, are they leading by example? Are they walking the talk? Are they practicing what they preach? Your trust develops. Based on that trust comes automatically the devotion. These three attributes or attitudes that we talked about, starting with humility, sincerity, faith, implicit faith, devotion, are key pillars on which we build to achieve other virtues and develop other virtues through our sadhana. And for reading and trying to understand what are those other qualities that one ought to develop, this has been beautifully discussed and described by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, verses 8 to 12. Some of you may have read these verses, some of you may have heard these verses, and these verses talk about different qualities that are considered knowledge. Anything other than this, Lord Krishna says, is ignorance. I'll briefly read that verse and briefly talk about this before we close this talk. The verses 8 to 12 of chapter 13. Amanitvam adambitvam ahimsak shanti arjavam acharyopasanam shaucham stairyam atma vinigraha indriyarteshu vairagyam anahankara evacha janma mrityu jara vyadi dosha anudarshanam ashaktir anabhi swanga putradara grahadishu nityam cha samachittatvam ishta nishtopapattishu mai cha ananya yogena bhaktir avyavicharini vivikta desha sevitvam aratir janasam adhyatma jnana nityatvam tattva jnanartha darshanam etad jnanam iti proktam ajnanam yadatonyata. Here, Lord Krishna explaining to Arjuna, he says, humility, pricelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a true bona fide spiritual master or guru with humility. Cleanliness of the body and the mind, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with society, even-mindedness. In all situations, pleasant and unpleasant, constant and unalloyed devotion to the divine, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general masses of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for absolute truth, these, Lord Krishna says, I declare to be knowledge. And besides whatever this may be ignorance, is ignorance. So in terms of further reading and further inspiration, we would suggest that one would go through these verses and apply them to develop our attitudes, a different attitude towards the Guru and towards the teachings, which essentially form the sadhana. When we are looking at sadhana, the great sage Patanjali, in the works, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, has quoted 9 obstacles that prevent us from going forward. And the opposite of these obstacles is an attitude that we have to develop towards sadhana. First one being vyadi, physical illness. Physical illness will come and stop us in our tracks. It may, but if we live a healthy life, exercise regularly, eat the right food, do our best. In spite of that, if physical illness comes in, because it's a part of karma, accept it. Take whatever medicines that need to be taken. Just keep a positive attitude, positive mental state. As some of you may have encountered, there are people in the world who may have been inflicted with a serious illness, such as cancer. And some people have come out of it by having a simple positive attitudes, physical illness. Second obstacle being sthana, lack of interest or enthusiasm, lethargy. Counter it with a positive attitude. Be physically active. Have the drive, have the verve. Attend inspiring talks, read inspiring works or spiritual works that help us change this lazy attitude. We've already talked about the next obstacle, samshaya, doubt, doubting mind. And all of these obstacles, the 9 obstacles, are very well countered by just simply practicing with sincerity this beautiful path of Kriya Yoga. Pramada, carelessness or negligence, the 4th obstacle. Alasya, laziness. 6th is avirati, desire for sense objects. Bhranti darshana, living under the illusion of wrong understanding. 8th, the bhumikatvat, missing the point or inability to hold on to what is achieved. We may be making spiritual progress, but we go up a little bit, achieve a little bit of success, come down. Not able to hold on to it. Why? Because there's some mistake in us. Something that we are doing is not right. We have to increase our practice, steadiness. And that is also combined with this last one, anavistattva, inability to maintain the achieved progress. Climbing the ladder, coming down. Climbing the ladder, coming down. We try to, even when we talk about spiritual progress, we try to overcome some of our weaknesses, but then we go back to those same things. So revert back to them, because the mind is so powerful. It is taking us back to the old habits. We have to break those habits. Positive attitude in life. These few points hopefully have helped you look at what we ought to focus when it comes to having a attitude towards the Guru's teachings, and because those teachings essentially are nothing but sadhana itself. To become humble, to develop humility itself is sadhana. Because initially we may not be there. We may be one of those arrogant persons, egotistical people like Duryodhana. But even we can change. Change has to happen, but it has to happen with sincere practice combined with help from our loving masters, gurus, their grace. The Guru will bestow upon the disciple grace only if the disciple is able to put hard work. That's why Gurudev talks about, when he talks about grace, he says, grace is kripa, kri and pa. If you do, you get. If you kri is doing, pa is getting. So if you do, you get. So with that, we'd like to bring this small talk to a close. May the blessings of God and Gurudev and all of this lineage of Kriya masters be upon all of us. Let us close with a small prayer of well-being. Sarve bhavantu sukinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha vagbhave. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Jai Guru, I bow to you all. Thank you all for your patience. Jai Guru.
In May 2009, on the occasion of Gurudev's birthday seminar in the Mother Center at Miami, Guruji expressed his wish to have 4 ashrams opened in the 4 regions across the United States. After Kriya Vedanta Gurukulam in Chicago, the Temple of Peace ashram came into existence in 2014. Kriyavans from all over attended the inauguration of the Temple of Peace given by Sri Guruji on the day of Vijaya Dashami, which means victory of good over evil. Following renovations, the Temple of Peace officially opened its doors to the public in 2016 on the auspicious day of Mahashivaratri. Located in Denver, Colorado, on a 1-acre property 1 mile high above sea level, the Temple of Peace is the highest of the 4 USA ashrams and serves the surrounding mountain states of Idaho, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Montana, and central Canada. The front of the ashram is lined with gorgeous wildflowers, and around back is a spacious yard, which includes a garden and large open spaces for retreat gatherings. The interior includes a living room, dining area and kitchenette, 2 meditation halls, and a private room for Sri Guruji. There's also a fully stocked library with books, audio, and videos from Gurudev Paramahamsa Hariharananda and Guruji Paramahamsa Pragyanandaji. Throughout the year, the Temple of Peace holds many initiations, weekend intensives, pujas, and multi-day retreats. Doors to the Temple of Peace are open daily, from the early morning to the late evening, serving Kriyavans and local community alike. Our resident monks, Swami Purnatmananda and Swami Brahma Dhyananda, are available to serve in guided meditations, spiritual counseling, share warm, delicious vegetarian meals, and much more. In addition to the resident monks, local Yogacharya, Srinidhi Baba, also serves and guides the Kriyavans during weekend programs. Be sure to come visit the Temple of Peace in one of America's greatest cities and nature's most beautiful works. We look forward to seeing you in the future.
Hari Om. So that was Temple of Peace, the Denver Ashram. So we had a beautiful talk by Swami Kunath Manandaji. Swami Kunath Manandaji is the backbone of all Kriya Yoga activities there in Denver. We now have with us Yogacharya Srinidhi Baba. Srinidhi Baba got initiated in 1988, and then he met Gurudev in the year 1992. And since 1995, Srinidhi Baba has taken care of Kriya Yoga activities in the area of Denver, and he organized so many Kriya Yoga programs, retreats, and also fundraising programs for Hariharananda Balashram. He started initiating since 2007. And when you were seeing the video, you could see Srinidhi Baba putting shoulder on another person. It is actually his brother, older brother, and his brother is taking care of the activities, Kriya Yoga activities in Bangalore. A very, very sweet person, and so is Srinidhi Baba. I'm so happy to introduce you, Baba. Pranam. So I give it over to you, Baba. Pranam.
Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Divya Swarupananji. I thank the organizers of this beautiful Yoga seminar from Pragyana Mission. Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami Sadgurum Tam Namami Sadgurum Tam Namami. I bow down to Supreme Almighty God. I bow down to the celestial sage Devashi Narada. I bow down to my beloved Gurudev, Baba Paramahamsa Hariharanji, my beloved Guruji, Paramahamsa Pragyanji. I bow down to all the masters of this Kriya Yoga lineage. I bow down to the sages and saints of all times, of all places. And I bow down to the presence of the God within each one of you. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you are. The topic for my talk is about qualities of a devotee endearing to God. Before I can talk about the qualities of a devotee, we need to understand what is devotion. Devotion in Sanskrit is called bhakti. The word bhakti in Sanskrit is derived from the root word bhaj. Now, bhaj has 6 different meanings. So let's look at those meanings first. One meaning is to divide. Divide what to do and what not to do, what to eat and what not to eat. what is the real thing or changeless thing, and what is unreal, unchanging. So this division doesn't mean to discriminate between people. We're not talking about that, or communities, or our countries. This is the actions we do, in terms of what we should be doing and what we should not be doing. So that's first meaning. Second meaning is to cook. To cook, what does that mean? It is basically offering our life to others like a well-prepared meal, throwing away unnecessary aspects of our life, throwing away our anger, jealousy, greed, etc., the negativities within us. Just like we peel the skin of the vegetables, before we cook, and we, cook the inside of the vegetables and, produce a wonderful meal. And that's exactly what this is referring to essentially serve others. In other words, make your life useful to others and pleasant to others as well. Third meaning is to distribute and share. Distributing what we have for the benefit of others. This doesn't mean just distributing your material wealth, which of course is included, but distributing peace, joy, harmony, and oneness, and share that with everyone. Also to share one's wealth, material wealth, with others. There was a time that our Miami ashram here in US required some funds, and there was a teaching from Gurudev. There was a letter from Gurudev. He had mentioned to offer 1 month of our net salary as contribution. So that's a kind of a guidance that Gurudev gave us in terms of what we should do in terms of charitable contributions, whether it be to the ashram, to other charitable organizations, whatever you wish, but he had given this wonderful guidance. So sharing one's wealth so that to the right place, so that, that particular institution, organization, or person for that matter, can improve their life, can benefit others as well. There's also another example of a beautiful master called Purandaradasa from Karnataka, the state I come from. He lived in the 16th century. He was actually born in 1484 and lived till 1565 AD. This great master was not born as a master. Initially, he was an extremely greedy merchant. He was basically hoarding so much wealth. He was considered Navakoti Narayana, which means he had 9 crores of wealth, which means probably billions of dollars in current currency. And but at the same time, although he had so much wealth, he would not even spare a penny to anyone. And that was his nature. And there was a time when he was tested, when God himself came to him in a form of a Brahmin asking for his donation. It didn't occur, and he wouldn't give him anything. And the story goes that his wife did contribute to to this person who was, of course, God in the form of this Brahmin, and she actually gave her nose ring. And when this merchant, Purandaradasa, in his previous life, found out that his wife does not have the nose ring, he basically was questioning as to where it is. And the wife prayed to God, and essentially it appeared in front of her. So I'm keeping it brief. I'm not going through the entire story, but it's an eye awakening for this merchant to see that his wife was able to have the benefit of the vision of God while he could not. He did not see it. And so he became completely transformed at that point and gave away all his wealth completely and became a total devotee of God. So this is the third meaning, to distribute and share your peace, joy, harmony, oneness, even material wealth. The fourth meaning is to serve others selflessly and with love. When we do so, then we are serving God. Swami Manandaji also mentioned serving God. God is the best servant that we have, because he is constantly breathing through us, breathing for us. It's an involuntary thing, right? It's going on all the time. He is digesting food. He is circulating the blood all around, and so keeping us alive. So, he's doing that irrespective of our nature, whether we are good or not so. The other great example is of Lord Hanuman. Lord Hanuman, who served Lord Rama 24 hours a day. He was always at his beckoning and service. In fact, people were jealous of him because Rama loved him so dearly. And he was a great servant, a great example of service to his master. The fifth meaning is to sing from our hearts. Whether we are happy or whether we are sorrowful, doesn't matter. Express it in terms of a song, if you are able to do so. A great example is of Mother Meera, a great devotee of Lord Krishna, who sang, with her greatest love for Lord Krishna, who she considered as her husband. And with her devotion, she was able to overcome many, many tests, many obstacles. She was given poison. She was able to consume the poison and still be unaffected because of the grace of Lord Krishna. She was exposed to venomous snakes and still nothing happened to her. So the firm faith and firm love that Mother Meera had, made her able to go through all these various tests that she had to go through in her life. But she sang beautiful songs, and even today we enjoy those songs. The sixth meaning is to love all, untainted by any desire or expectation, to love even our enemies. Guruji says, love all, serve all. Now, going into the understanding of devotion itself, we saw the root word, bhaj, and its meanings. Now let's go into the actual definition, you can say, of devotion. And it's beautifully given in this text on the Bhakti Sutra. Let me see if you can see this. This is a beautiful book written by Guruji, Eternal Love, which has got the metaphorical interpretations and explanation from Guruji. Guruji has also written a beautiful storybook on Devarshi Narada. Devarshi Narada is a great example and an epitome of divine love. Devashi, it means a celestial sage. And he was essentially one of the Manasaputras, one who was born from Lord Brahma, from his mind. And he was supposedly born from Brahma's thigh. Anyway, he defines in Narada Bhakti Sutra, by the way, there are two Bhakti Sutras. Sutra means aphorism. Bhakti, we are going to discuss now. There are two of them, Narada Bhakti Sutra, and there is a Shandilya Bhakti Sutra. But the one that is more popular is the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Extremely beautiful book of 84 aphorisms that I recommend you to read, Guruji's book there. In that, he mentions in Sutra number 2, very second one, he says, Sa Tvasmin Parama Prema Rupa. He says, he already referred to Bhakti in the very first aphorism. So that's why he's saying Sa as a pronoun. Sa represents a feminine form. So devotion is considered feminine. What is this devotion? Devotion is indeed the nature of supreme love for God. I'm stressing the word supreme love for God. It is thinking ceaselessly about God and for no benefit at all. For example, if you look at the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of the greatest devotees of Lord Krishna, he was constantly, he's always chanting Krishna, 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 constantly in his, in his mind, in his tongue. When he was not speaking, he was always chanting this, Lord's name. And there is an example, or there's a story about him. One of his younger disciples noticed that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was holding his tongue when he goes to bathroom, and he was a little surprised about that. And he asked his guru about why he was holding the tongue, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I didn't want to chant Krishna because my tongue doesn't stop chanting the name of Krishna. I didn't want to chant when I was going to the bathroom. And then the young devotee asked him, what if one were to die at that time? Because, you had mentioned that you should be dying with the name of the Lord on your lips. What if somebody dies at that point? And this kind of opened his eyes, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, didn't even stop thinking about God, even at all times, even in the bathroom. So this is thinking ceaselessly about God, but true devotion expects nothing in return, absolutely nothing, not even liberation, no material aspects, no happiness. It accepts whatever is given. It doesn't even look for liberation. There is a song, God loves devotion so much. There's a song, in fact, Paramahansa Yoganji sings that song. The song goes that God says, I can give you freedom and liberation, but don't ask me for devotion. Devotion is more precious, even more precious than liberation. Why? In fact, Narada Bhakti Sutra explains, when God grants liberation, it gives liberation just for one person, that person that is given liberation. But when God gives devotion to someone, that person not only liberates themselves, but also many, many others, just like our Gurudev, just like our Guruji. Their They are the epitomes of that devotion. They are the true examples, living examples of devotion, who not only have liberated, and they're liberating many of us, trying to liberate many of us. Now, going to Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 7, verse 16, there is a beautiful verse that Lord Krishna is mentioning. Chaturvidya bhajante mama janaha sukritino arjuna artho jignaso artarti jnanicha bhartashrava. So basically, Lord Krishna is talking about devotees and 4 types of devotion, or 4 types of devotees. He says there are 4 types of devotees. One who is artha, one who is distressed, one who is artharti, the seeker of material wealth. Third one, jignasa, one who is inquisitive, mentally curious, intellectually curious. And final one is jnani, the one who is realized the knowledge of the absolute. Now let's look at a little bit of each of these different devotee types. The first one is the distressed devotee. This distressed devotee is seeking God. Oh God, I need a job. I need good health. I need this. I need that. So there's a constant, wants or needs that the person is looking for. It may not be wants, it may be actual need the person is looking for, but they're distressed and they're seeking the help of God. This person is also a devotee, but this devotion is the tamasic quality. It is the quality where basically you're seeking something from God because you want to improve your life. And a lot of times these devotees cease to seek God after the particular wish is fulfilled. The second one is the seeker of material wealth. They're seeking material wealth. They want to prosper. They want to get more money. It could be for helping others too. That may be the intent as well. But they're kind of having the devotion so that they can pray and get something back. And this is the Rajasic type of devotees, one who is seeking material wealth. The third type of devotee is the Sattvic type, one who is inquisitive, one who is curious, intellectually curious to know about God, to know the nature of God. So this is obviously superior to the other two, but still not the ultimate one. The ultimate one is the jnani. Jnani is the one who is beyond these 3 qualities, who has realized that knowledge of the absolute and does not require anything else, just God. No, nobody else, nothing else. And in the next verse, in fact, Lord Krishna mentions that among all of these, the most dear to him, all of them are dear to the Lord, but the most dear is the jnani, the one who wants just God and nothing else. Now, this supreme love for God has to be it should not have any boundaries of time or place. For example, if you're with a dear friend, with somebody that you really like to be with, you're with that person for some period of time, maybe some part of the day, but you're not with that person 24 hours a day and in all places. So, because, you get maybe tired of the person at that point if you're there all the time. But with respect to this supreme love for God, it is all the time there. It is constantly the only thought that is going on. of course, it doesn't mean that you're ignoring your duties. In fact, Sage Narada mentions that you need to perform your duties that you are allocated to, in the roles that you're playing in the world, but with that same love, with the same love for God, seeing the presence of God in everyone. Now, people say, how do I develop this love for God, right? I don't know God. I've not seen God. I don't know how to develop this love for God. People have asked this question to me as well. And the simplest thing to do is to, our masters have given us, is to watch our breath. Breath being the manifestation of God. If you can love your breath, that's loving God. It is the same thing. So that is yours. That is how you do it. That's the starting point. That's what we should continuously do, even at this point, while you're listening to this talk. And I should be doing that even as I'm talking. Inhaling, watching that inhalation, and watching the exhalation going through my talk through my mouth. Now, Gurudev would sing a beautiful song. He would say, "Let all my love flow towards thee, toward thee, towards thee, O my Lord." He would sing it so beautifully in both in Bengali, which is the original song written in, and in English for our benefit. So he was constantly in that flow of love towards God. So that is what devotion is. So in essence, devotion is the supreme love for God, seeking God and nothing else, just God itself or himself. Now let's go into the qualifications of a devotee. I would like to share this particular slide here. Hope you can all see this one. If you go to chapter 12 of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna talks about 40 different qualities of that are qualifications of a devotee. 40 different qualities. I'll not be going through all of those. I'll go into 10 of them in these two verses 18 and 19. There are only 20 verses in chapter 12. I'm, basically picking the last, almost towards the end of the chapter 18 and 19. So let us recite that. Let me recite this first. Samaha shatraucha mitrecha tata manaphamanayoho shitoshna sukhadukkeshu samaha sangha vivarjitaha. That's verse 18. Tulya nindastu nirmoni santushto ena kenachat aniketa stiramatihi bhaktiman me priyo naraha. This is the verse 19. The meaning of these two verses, and typically, they're discussed together. Those four are alike to friend and foe, equipoised in honor and dishonor, cold and heat, joy and sorrow, and are free from all unfavorable association. Those who take praise and reproach alike, who are given to silent contemplation, content with what comes their way, without attachment to the place of residence, whose intellect is firmly fixed in me and for full of devotion to me. Such persons are very dear to me. We'll go into a little bit more details into each of these qualities right now. So going into the verse number 18, it says, Samaha Shatraucha Mitrecha. It is being equipoised or treating equally both friends as well as enemies. What does it mean? So let's, in fact, it's a little story that Guruji talks about. So the scenario is the battle of Rama and Ravana is over. Ravana has the evil king, demon king Ravana has been killed by Rama. And so there are some survivors on both sides. Some survivors on the demonic side, on the Ravana side. Some survivors, the monkey army that Rama had. So Rama asks one of the monkeys to, he gives the holy water and says, sprinkle this holy water on all the dead bodies so that they can come alive. So they go ahead and sprinkle on all the dead bodies, on the demons as well as the monkeys, monkeys and bears. There is a bear army as well. So they sprinkle on all of them. Only the monkeys and the bears come alive. The demons are still dead. And so it is a puzzling thing. So this particular monkey goes to Rama and says, "How come? Are you kind of partial to your friends who helped you in this battle, and not favorable to those demons who were battling against you?" He said, "No, it's not so. I'm equal for both of them. I'm equally loving to both of them. It's just that the demons were looking at me, and so they got liberated, so they don't have to come alive. Whereas the monkeys and the bears who were fighting on my side were looking at the demons on the other side. And so obviously they were not looking at anyone that would help their liberation. So they came alive so that they can practice, practice more their meditation and other aspects so that they can become liberated. So just to illustrate, it is Samaha Shatraucha Mitrecha. God has no distinction. He is equal among all of us. He is equally breathing through each one of us, irrespective of whether we love him or we don't. This next one quality is Samaha Manapamanayoho, being equipoised, whether in praise or in criticism, when somebody is trying to put you down or trying to praise you. There is a words in Sanskrit which tells about what happens when somebody praises or when somebody criticizes you. It says, "Sanmana tu tapah kshayaha asanmanat tapovruti," which means that with honor, your good deed reduces. With dishonor, your good deed increases. So this may be puzzling, but with honor, your good deed reduces, because when somebody praises you, your ego is boosted. And so if you get affected in terms of, becoming more egoistic, basically your good deed reduces at that point. On the other hand, when somebody is criticizing, putting you down, that dishonor, if you don't let that affect you, but look at it from the perspective of, if there's something truth in that particular criticism from this person, and you improve, you're basically improving yourself. The good deed increases as well. So this is something you want to keep in mind, to not seek praise from anyone. Not that you want to seek criticism, but criticism is good. It helps you to improve oneself. There are times when Guruji has criticized me, not many times, but that has helped me to improve myself. The third aspect, Shitoshna Sukadukeshu Samaha. Shita means cold, Ushna means heat. So being equal in heat and cold. It doesn't mean that you just have to tolerate heat and cold without properly protecting your body. You protect the body, or if you have other means by certain breath means to protect your body, you should do so. But don't let your mind be perturbed by them. We in Denver here get cold weather. In fact, it's cold these days now that it's winter, and we get snow. Don't get perturbed. Oh, it's going to be snowing tomorrow. It's going to be cold tomorrow, or it's going to be too hot tomorrow, etc. So they not to be perturbed by that, not to be affected by that. Just take it as it comes. It is nature. Then Sukha Dukkesha Samaha, equivalent in happiness as well as in sorrow, in unhappiness. Now remember, happiness and unhappiness happens because of our own karma. Accept it so that you can exhaust that karma. And also, of course, we should meditate, do more Kriya pranayamas, and do the Paravasta to exhaust our karma, both our Sanchita karma and our Prarabdha karma. The fourth quality is, or fifth quality, is Sangha Vivarjitaha, free from attachment, association, or involvement. So does it mean that you want to be detached from your duties? No, not so. Does it mean you want to be detached from people that your family, your friends? Not so. But you need to be detached in the sense lovingly, you love them, but not be so attached that any situation you will be perturbed. You are compassionately attached to them in the sense that you love them, you help them, you serve them, but not being affected by what happens to them, but guiding them if you can. Then the next question, or the next qualification is, this is going into the verse 19, Tulya Nindastati. It is the same, Lord Krishna is repeating this, being the same in praise or in criticism, being in equanimity. The next characteristic is Mauni. Mauni normally means observing silence. But in practicality, it would mean one who has control over his speech, control over his tongue. So it is, basically indicative that, one should be careful in terms of what you speak, and what not to speak. There's a beautiful example of a story that Mahatma Gandhi has given. The story goes is that this hunter is chasing the deer to kill the deer, and the deer runs in front of a sage in a certain direction. The hunter is a little far away. He does not see where the deer ran. But the sage has noticed that the deer has run in a certain direction. So the hunter comes to the sage and says, which direction did the deer go towards? And the sage, if you were to answer, point to the direction that this deer ran, he basically could be committing an act of violence or could aid, an act of violence because the hunter is going to kill the deer, possibly. And then if the sage were to point a different direction, not the direction where the deer ran, then basically the hunter would be, given a false information. Essentially, the sage will be speaking untruth. So what should the sage do? And Mahatma Gandhi beautifully explains, the best thing for the sage to do is to just be silent, not speak. Go into meditation, just close your eyes, go into meditation. The hunter may, of course, may not be pleased with the sage. He may even be angry at the sage or, shout at the sage, but, eventually the hunter is going to move on because his goal is to kill the deer. The next quality is santushto yena kenachit, content with whatever one gets. This is one of the qualities of niyama that sage Patanjali mentions. So as a shaucha, santosha, the second quality in the niyamas, content with whatever one gets. In other words, you're at peace all the time. Nothing is perturbing you. Now, does it mean that you don't want to change your nature, your thing? Let's say you want to get better materially, let's say. It's fine. It's not that you shouldn't do that. You should. But the thing is, you leave the result of that to God. It may happen, it may not happen. Either way, you're at peace. You're completely content. You're not fretting about, oh yeah, I didn't get this, I didn't get that, etc. So that is the nature of being content all the time. In fact, Guruji mentions, if there is one thing you should not be content is your practice of meditation. You should not be content with your progress. You should always want to progress even more. So that is one place where santushto, or being content, is not the best thing. Trying to get better. In fact, Yoganji says, make sure that your meditation each day is better than the previous day. So that is what we should be focusing or aiming for. Next quality, aniketaha. Aniketaha is one who has no place to call his own. In other words, of course, people say, does it mean that you don't purchase a home, you don't stay in a place, in an apartment or wherever you are? It's not that. The metaphorical meaning is to be free from identification with the body. When we say place, this is our place, our body. Body is our temple. To be free from that identification of body, to be free from body consciousness is what this is intended for. In fact, Lahari Baba says, aniketaha, that having no place, happens only in Paravastha. When we go into Paravastha, there is no concept of time or place. You don't know where you are. You don't know where, how long you're in this deep state of meditation. So it is a thing that happens in Paravastha, that quality. And of course, devotion helps you to get there. Now, one may say, does devotion mean duality? Yes, initially it means so. Because if you are devoted to God, you're seeing God as separate from you. But that duality goes away, because once as you're seeing God as so-called different from you and loving God, but eventually you just basically become one with God. In fact, Gurudev used to say, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would chant and would sing, would dance with singing the name of Lord Krishna so much, but eventually he would sit completely quiet and go into deep meditation, become one with Krishna. That is the state. So don't get confused that it's that devotion is saying that you have to be that you have to be in duality. It is duality to start with and becoming one with God as you go into meditation, which follows this devotion. And one can go into deeper meditation with that devotion. Of course, devotion is a must in order to get the deepest meditation. Without love, without that devotion, it becomes a mechanical aspect to meditate. You get the benefit still, but not as much. Next quality is stiramati. Stiramati means one whose knowledge and understanding is steady and firm. How do you make your mati, the mind, stira? If the mind associates with what is changing, then of course it becomes restless. But if the mind associates with something that is unchanging, then it becomes steady. And what is unchanging? Obviously, the only absolute truth is God. It said stiramati brahmasthiti. One who is established in truth is really one who has that firm knowledge and understanding. So Lord Krishna says, Bhaktiman me priyo naraha. These devotees, such a devotee with these qualities are very dear to me. Now, these are 10 qualities that I went through here. But as Gurudev says, practice is better than theory. So how do we practice devotion? And that is a key aspect that I want to talk about next. So let me share this. Lord Rama has given a beautiful set of 9 steps for devotion. And so I'll briefly talk about them. When Lord Rama, met Shabri, Mother Shabri, and Mother Shabri asks Rama about how to be devoted to the Lord. The first, there he talks about 9 steps. First step is Pratama Bhagati Santanakara Sangha. The first step to devotion is to keep the company of the saints. Sat Sangha. This is also mentioned in the Bhakti Sutra, the Sutra number 39. And, the Satsanga is something that is really emphasized by all our masters. And how do we keep our Satsanga in normal life? Just be in, observing the breath, be in the fontanelle, or be in the soul center. You're in Satsanga at that point. The second step is Tu Sarirati Mama Katha Prasanga. So second step is to enjoy listening to the legends, discourses pertaining to the Lord. For example, the stories in Bhagavatam is extols the various greatness of God. Stories of gopis and Lord Krishna, where gopis are constantly remembering Lord Krishna, forgetting everything they are doing. There's a gopi that is selling some vegetables, but she's saying, does anyone want Krishna? And somebody stops her and says, are you selling Krishna? Then she realizes she is so much absorbed in Krishna that she is shouting, that he is, does anyone want Krishna? So that is the nature of that kind of a love. Third aspect is Guru Pada Pankaja Seva Tisari Bhagati Aman. Selfless service to the Guru's lotus feet without any pride is the third step. There's a beautiful story of Mary, not the Mother Mary, there's a different Mary, Mary and Martha, if you know the 2 sisters who served Jesus. Martha was busy cooking for Jesus, but Mary was always at the feet of Jesus, and she was anointing the feet of Jesus, massaging the feet of Jesus, cleaning the feet, applying oil and perfume to the feet of Jesus. and then wiping the feet of Jesus with her own hair. So that is the love of Mary to Jesus. That is, constant service to the gurus. That doesn't mean service to the gurus only, by going to the feet of the guru, but following the guru's teachings itself is service to the gurus. Chauti bhagati mama gana karayi kapatataji gavana. The fourth step is to earnestly sing praises of the Lord's virtues with a heart clear of guile, deceit, or hypocrisy. This is also mentioned also in the Bhakti Sutra, number 37. And Narada is the epitome of that, that bhakti, constantly singing the Lord's name. The fifth step, mantra japa mama drida vishwasa panchama bhajanaso veda prakasa. Chanting my name with steadfast faith is the fifth step as the Vedas reveal. Chanting with one-pointed attention of Lord's name with love. And then, of course, as we all have been saying in this seminar, watching the breath. Watching the breath is ajapa japa. You're not chanting, but you're chanting. You're watching, and it is without explicitly chanting. You're practicing the chanting. So these are 5 steps from Tulsidas Ramayana, but the next 4 steps are here. The 6th one, Chatadamasi labirati bahukarma nirate nirantara sajjana dharma. The 6th is to practice self-control, good character, detachment from manifold activities, and always follow the duties as a good person. Practicing self-control, the practice of yama and dhamma is something that Sage Patanjali talks about. Practicing good character and detaching yourself from manifold activities, meaning you need to look at your activities that you're performing and see what activities are these activities are something that you want to perform, and there are activities that you want to give up on, meaning they're useless for your growth. So we need to practice that self-analysis to see, to basically streamline our activities, streamline our life to be the best. The 7th step, Satava Samamohi Maya Jagadeka Mote Santa Adhika Kari Leka. The 7th step is to perceive the world as God Himself and regard the saints higher than the Lord. There is a beautiful question that was the great Saint Kabir was asked: if God and Guru were to come in front of you, who would you bow down to first? And Saint Kabir said, I would bow down to the Guru first, because it's because the Guru that I could see God. So the key aspect is to regard these saints are as higher than the Lord, because they are the means through which you are reaching God. Of course, Guruji says, and Gurudev says, if you cannot see God in all, you cannot see God at all. The 8th step that Lord Rama is telling Shabari, Atava Jatala Basantosha Sapanehu Nahi Dekayi Paradosha. Always be happy and content, and even while you dream, do not blame or find fault in others. Maintaining that state of equanimity. In Lord Rama's life, there was Manthara and Queen Kaikeyi, who gave so much trouble to Lord Rama, basically sending him to exile for 14 years. But he didn't have any, he was not blaming them or finding fault with them. He just accepted it. He was happy and content to go to the forest for the 14 years. So he was forbearing that pain and pleasure. There's an example of Lord Buddha. Lord Buddha, when he was giving a discourse in some village, a person came and spat on Lord Buddha and cursed him. And Lord Buddha didn't care. He just wiped the spit and continued his discourse. The next day, he was in a different village giving a discourse. And this person who spat on him realized his mistake and the great mistake he had done for this great master. So he goes to Lord Buddha the next day and says, falls on his feet and asks for his forgiveness. And Lord Buddha says, I don't remember what you did yesterday. Yesterday is yesterday. It's gone. So today is today. Don't worry about it. That is the state of these masters. And that is the state we have to get to be happy and content, even at all times. The ninth step, Navama Saralasabil Sarnachalhina, Mama Barosa Hiya Harishana Dina. To be pure and simple, fully dependent on God, always being cheerful at heart and being devoid of all narrowness, being childlike. As a beautiful example of Gurudev, he used to travel with Christina Ma, and he was at the immigration. And the immigration officer asked Christina Ma, who is this person? And Christina Ma said, this is my father. And the immigration officer turned to Gurudev and said, who is this person? Pointing to Christina Ma. And Gurudev said, she is my mother. So childlike that Gurudev, of course, the immigration officer was probably confused. But anyways, being so simple-minded, straightforward, pure, and simple. That's the nature of these people, of devotees. So let us practice these 9 steps. These are wonderful 9 steps of devotion, Navada Bhakti, that Lord Rama has given. And in fact, he mentions to Mother Shabri that you have all of these. You're a great devotee already. All of these already are something that you already have and have practiced. So there's nothing more to practice for you. So let us try to practice more in our lives and try to realize, that devotion within us. It is that devotion which will take us to the depths of realization, not only for ourselves, we can also help others. With that, I'll conclude my talk. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Let everyone be happy, healthy, cheerful, peaceful, joyful. Let everybody be content and peaceful. Let there be auspicious. Let everyone experience auspiciousness. Let there be no difficulty affecting anyone. Let there be no sorrow afflicting anyone. I pray to you all. I pray for the well-being of all of us. Let God and Gurus bless us all. Om Amen. Thank you all. Jai.
Hariam, thank you very much, Srinidhi Baba. Just a brief intervention now. Just want to tell all the viewers on YouTube that we will be cutting off the stream now. So please join us again tomorrow, 6 p.m. Tomorrow is a holy day for us. Tomorrow is the Mahasamadhi Divas of our Guru, Parama Guru, Sanyal Mahashaya. So please join us again, 6 p.m. tomorrow at the same time. Thank you very much.